how to make these changes in a sustainable manner, what you're actually doing. Because for me and my approach, when it comes to creating specific results, you want to get into a version of yourself that can normalize that experience and can entertain that result without finding yourself getting negatively attached, waiting, obsessing, can still engage in your daily life in ways that are enjoyable. You see other people coming forward, treating you in the same manner. Your daily quality of life increases, and you don't feel like you're regressing, obsessing, going backwards. It should be growth filled. There might be some moments of discomfort because you're addressing things that you struggle with, but ultimately, you should notice that you're growing as an individual. So, and I think, the approach to that can differ depending, or how that materializes is going to differ depending on how you're approaching making these changes. First and foremost, okay, I don't have any script for this. So everything that I'm saying here is purely off experience and my own knowledge. I have an idea of what I'm going to be talking about, but if there are things that I feel like need to be added to this video after this live stream ends, then I may add things onto the live streams that follow. But I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get everything out in one go. And I have kind of a clear mental map of how I want to talk about these things. Before that, though, let me just take a second to look into the chat. You guys are so cute. And let me see. Is it okay to jump in? I feel like it's one piece at this point. Discord sounds huge. Yeah, you can totally just jump in. So the group is really fun. There's quite a few members in there. There's only a few active ones, but the ones that are active are very supportive, and it's a really great community. So I'm very happy with how that is all materializing. So thank you for everybody that is in there, okay? When can we ask questions? So I'm gonna be doing questions towards the end of this. Today, I think is probably gonna be more explaining because there's quite a few things I need to talk about in terms of how you approach this. But we have a question like dedicated live streams this week. And also, that's why the Discord is really cool. So you don't feel like you're waiting for live streams to get questions answered. You can go in there and type something in the venting and triggered zone or tips and suggestions, and you'll either get feedback from me or somebody else that has experience that will be kind enough to answer and give you some suggestions. So there's tons of resources here. Also, there's tons of live streams as well too. The membership side has tons and tons and tons of videos. And I've noticed that some people are asking questions that have been answered before or circumstances that have been discussed before. So make sure if you're on the membership side that you're scrolling through the videos that are up and looking at the titles, okay? Aside from that, okay, the first thing that I want to say before we even get into anything in terms of adjusting yourself or applying mindset, okay? I've talked about this in the Discord, and I also tweeted it recently. It is not delusional. It is not delusional for you to create what you want in your life, for you to turn situations around, for you to create solutions, for you to get what you want out of life. You don't have to be illogical or delusional to do that. And I think this is the reason why I want to start here is because this is a serious conversation, actually. There's a very serious tone to this because in society and what a lot of people are saying online is like, may all your delulu come true, right? Or something to that effect. And the reason why they're saying that is because when most people see somebody that has confidence, that believes in themselves, that is willing to overcome challenges and set their mind to something and not give up, they're perceiving that as delusional. Yes, maybe somebody is setting their mind to something that is not currently in their experience right now, But in order to deliberately and consciously create the life that you desire, you're going to need to take on a belief system and organize yourself in a way so that you can perceive challenges not as challenges, be able to respond to them appropriately, hold that vision in mind, and materialize that as your experience. There's nothing delusional about that. There's nothing delusional with believing in yourself. There's nothing delusional with deciding what's going to occur in your life. There's nothing delusional with organizing yourself in a new way. There's nothing delusional with regulating your nervous system. There's nothing delusional with using your mind to envision something that you want to create for your life and then creating that as your physical experience. It's actually a necessary part of the human experience, right? You have to, you're creating your life, which means you need to take an active role in doing that through aligning yourself to a version of yourself that can create that life in your belief system and hold a vision in mind and allow for that to unfold. It's very logical. It's not delusional. Okay. It doesn't have to be illogical or delusional. Even when people say things like, well, what if they're not in my life right now? Okay. You can change situations in your life. You can create solutions in your life. You can everything is possible. Things are constantly changing, right? The only way things aren't going to necessarily change is if you don't change. If you hold yourself hostage to the previous set of circumstances and already assume a position in your mind that is defeated. So that's why I said at the beginning here, okay, if you are approaching this and approaching this with that understanding as to what you're doing and why you're doing it, it's going to feel like you're growing. You're not going to feel like you're waiting for anything. You're going to be surrounding yourself with people, places, and things that help reaffirm this new way of identifying. You're going to be able to hold something in your mind and allow for it to unfold. And that really comes down to self-concept. Now, I do want to say this here before I get into all things related to self-concept, okay? Some people may hold an identity that supports the outcomes that they desire, but they're not necessarily used to deciding what will occur in their life, okay? They may have elements of confidence and self-belief, but they're just not used to that type of thinking, okay? And so some people might be able to, when they hear the message of, oh, okay, I just need to decide what's going to occur and hold that awareness, that's very easy for them. And so they're able to persist in that manner. Whereas other people, when they try to hold an awareness on something or decide what's going to occur in their life, they're finding that they're met with tons of intrusive thoughts, contradicting behaviors. They're spiraling all day long. They don't feel good in their body. They're feeling stuck in their reality. It's a very uncomfortable experience, okay? So for you as the viewer, okay, you need to take into context yourself and where you are. Because if you're in a position where you can just hold something in your mind, you're not getting negatively attached, obsessed with it, worried about it, you can organize your day, go about your life, everything feels dominantly stable, good. You're in a trusting space and you can allow for things to unfold, then that could be the route that you take, okay? Because it feels good to you and you're not battling yourself or constantly getting triggered or negatively reacting or recreating patterns in your life, okay? Maybe you just need to bring a bit of deliberation to your life. Okay, great. So you just decide what you want in your life. You have beliefs and ways of identifying that support that. You're not triggered all the time. So you can entertain these things and create those experiences, okay? Again, you as the viewer have to take into context yourself. If you are in a space where you're constantly triggered, you're worried all the time, you're avoiding things in your life, you are noticing that there's tons of patterns repeating, and then you're trying to hold an awareness on something, but you can't believe it, it doesn't feel logical, you're battling yourself, you don't feel like you're growing as an individual, you feel like you're waiting, you're isolating yourself, you're not enjoying your life, then you may need to take a different approach. One, because that's not a very enjoyable day-to-day way of organizing yourself or going about life. But two, it doesn't have to be that way. Okay, so this is where how you persist can be important, and taking yourself into context so that you don't struggle in ways that can be avoided. And you also address the things that you're struggling with and are able to become somebody that can sustain those results and entertain them and normalize the experiences that you want to consistently create in your life. All right. Now, when it comes to mindset, okay, if you like Neville Goddard, fine. There's a lot of different people that are talking about mindset from multiple different perspectives. I really like the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. That's free on YouTube, which is the psychology of self-image or / self-concept. I also like the book Healing Developmental Trauma by Lawrence Heller, which goes into nervous system regulation and its effect on your self-image or / self-concept. Okay. And when you look at things like Neville Goddard, he's talking about I am, right? So your self-concept creates the world in which you live. People are just messengers to that self-concept. Don't try to change them. Change yourself and they will confirm that change. Okay. And he also talks about how your imagination creates your reality. So you can bring something into your mind, right, that you're not currently experiencing. And if you can persist in the knowing of that, assume a version of yourself, okay, you will see that unfolds as your experience. Don't try and force it, okay? He has various ways of explaining it, but that's the gist of the message, okay? The two things that he's saying, though, is self-concept, so who you assume yourself to be, your identity, and then deciding what occurs in your life and allowing for that to unfold, right? But when we're looking at self-concept, we're taking into consideration our physiological state, so how we feel in our body, which he talks about feeling is the secret, right? And we're also talking about identity, right? And there's a few things wrapped up in those two things, right? I'm going to try and simplify this for you guys as much as possible, all right? So it's not anything super complicated. It's just about having an understanding on these things so you know what you're doing and why you're applying what you're applying, okay? When it comes to nervous system regulation and self-concept, right? That is why I suggest those other books so that you can go through this change sustainably. Okay, again, some of you might be in a self-concept and in a space within your body where you're not constantly triggered. And so it's easy for you to entertain desired outcomes and create that as your experience. Now, when it comes to what you want to create in your life, okay, I'm going to start off with self-concept. So let's say you're in a situation right now where you want to fix a relationship or you're noticing particular patterns are unfolding in your life that in dating or relationships, doesn't matter who the person is, there's a commonality. Maybe people are breaking up with you for the same reasons, you're getting ghosted, there's certain sets of circumstances that are popping up, okay? When we take into account where you are, okay, the current circumstances that you're in, it's not that you should take full responsibility for people treating you in undesirable ways. But you have to have the level of awareness to look at why you have shown up in ways that you've shown up, why you've perceived things in the way that you've perceived them, why you've allowed things to unfold in the way that you've allowed them, like meaning maybe staying in situations that you shouldn't have stayed in, maybe silencing yourself, accepting things that you shouldn't have accepted. Because by the time we're in an undesirable dynamic or something undesirable has occurred, there's certain ways that we've identified and handled situations that also contributed to that. Okay. And also, if you're struggling to focus on a desired outcome, then there's particular ways in how you're identified that are saying this is not logical for me. Okay. Or I'm not able to create this experience in my life for whatever reason from a belief standpoint. Again, I'm talking to people right now that are having a hard time just entertaining desired outcomes. Okay. So when we look at our self-concept, okay, your self-concept is a set of beliefs and assumptions and ways of identifying that you have learned through repeated experiences. I'm going to purely just talk about relationships in this video, okay? So I know that maybe some of you are here for career, or some of you are here for other certain desires you want to create in your life. I'm going to talk about relationships because that's what a lot of people are here for, which is fine, but it still applies the same to other areas of your life as well too. You pick up beliefs and ways of identifying through repeated experiences that tell you this is who you are and this is how this area of your life shows up. And I'm going to explain, I'm taking a step back from the current circumstances. I'm going to explain how those things lead to particular dynamics and why changing these things is going to allow for you to either recreate a dynamic and entertain a desired result and create that, or grow out of patterns and create something new that you want to experience with somebody else that's specific, or whatever you want to do. Okay. Either option is fine. It's up to you to decide what you want in your life. Okay. My whole thing is I want to make sure you take a sustainable approach and you actually make a genuine change within yourself so that you don't keep experiencing shitty ass things that are detrimental to you, that don't feel good, that you don't enjoy, that you don't want to experience with this person or another person. Okay. And taking a healthy, balanced approach to what you're doing. So, within the context of self-concept and how beliefs are picked up and how you view yourself in this area of your life, when Neville Goddard is talking about I am, okay, he is talking about how you're identified in either yourself or this area of your life. I am somebody that receives this. I'm somebody that values myself this way. I'm somebody that accepts this type of treatment. I'm somebody that creates this as my experience. Okay. The I am that you dominantly exist in, that you identify with, creates results in your life. And if you can get a good identity or I am in alignment, then entertaining those desired outcomes and bringing them in as your experience will be your new normal, just as it has been previously. Okay. So it's not about changing anybody or anything outside of you. It's about making a genuine change within yourself, because a new you is going to be able to create new circumstances, okay, including fixing previous circumstances. So if you're finding yourself obsessing over results and you're just trying to convince yourself something and you can't believe it, this is how you change that approach to create sustainable results in your life. Okay. Again, you pick up beliefs from multiple different experiences in your life that tell you who you are and how this area of your life shows up. Now, within the scope of relationships, okay, a lot of people will think, okay, I struggle with this in relationships because I had this experience here. Okay, so I picked up these beliefs from this experience here, which can be true sometimes. Okay, so it's slightly nuanced. Okay. The reason why I say it can be true sometimes is because as adults, we can go through extremely traumatic experiences that skew our self view or beliefs that we hold about a particular area of our life. Okay. But this is where I want you to discern yourself when you're taking into account making this change. Okay. When you're looking at recreating dynamics or creating something new in your life within the scope of love, I want you to look back at your initial experiences in relationships as well too. Okay. You don't need to figure out every single limiting belief that you have, but you definitely want to make sure you address the ones that you struggle with and ones that are patterned. Okay. So if your initial experiences in love were not good, meaning the first experiences you had in relationships, you accepted things you shouldn't have accepted, somebody didn't show up for you properly, you were in dynamics that were not healthy, that were toxic, whatever it may be, okay? It is my opinion that you most likely picked up beliefs prior to relationships that contributed to that. Meaning, you went into relationships already with skewed ways of viewing yourself in this area of your life. There's a reason why I'm saying this, okay? This is so that when you are assessing yourself and shifting your beliefs, you're able to accurately identify and change things that need to change. Okay. Again, some people might have some really bad experiences that negatively impact them. Maybe you had really good relationships. Your initial first dating experiences were okay and decent. And then you had a really bad experience that was traumatic that you need to address. Okay. But for people that have had multiple bad experiences and their first kind of experiences in love weren't that great, then chances are you already had that way of identifying, viewing yourself, and viewing this area of your life. Okay. Now, this is where you got to dig a little deep. Okay. But you only really got to do this once. And then once you do it, you can move forward and address the things that you've struggled with. Okay. I'm going to explain this from two different perspectives. Okay. I'm going to explain it for women and I'm going to explain it for men. And again, this is my opinion. And my experience with addressing myself and also helping other people as well too. So for women, okay, when you're growing up, your father is the first example of how a man's going to show up for you. Okay. So how affectionate he is with you, how consistent he is with you, how loving he is with you, how he communicates with you, how active he is in your life, right? That's the example, the initial experience with a man for how men show up for you, what you believe about yourself and what you believe about men. Okay. For women, and then also your mother, okay, shows you how to value yourself, how you respect yourself, how you allow yourself to be kind of pursued, how her relationship with your father kind of really shows you how to value yourself in that sense as well too, right? And also how she's conducting herself, how she's valuing herself shows you how to value yourself as a woman and what you deserve and all how to respect yourself, all those things. Okay. For a man, in my opinion, and again, this it can differ depending on what you're attracted to. So take orientation into account for this as well. But for men, your mother is the first female figure in your life that kind of sets that template for how women show up for you as well too. So is she affectionate? Is she consistent? Is she nurturing, caring, loving, right? Your father shows you how to respect yourself, how to conduct yourself, how to value a woman, how their relationship dynamic transforms as well too. Okay. These things are very important. Okay. Another layer to this. Okay. So how they show up for you sets those templates, right? So if one of them or both of them didn't show up that great, here's the other nuance to this. Okay. As a child, you don't have the ability to differentiate yourself from your environment, meaning you take everything very personally. Okay. So if something happens, you assume blame. So if, let's say, your father's not that present or great, then instead of realizing that as something with him, it becomes something that you take a fault in. So this person's not showing up for me loving, there's something wrong with me. Okay. So that's how that affects this how a man's gonna show up for you, and then what you believe about yourself in this area of your life. This person not being consistent with you, that's one going to affect how you view men and relationships and how this person's going to show up generally, but it's also going to affect what you believe about yourself, how you value yourself, what you think you deserve, what you think you're worth. Okay. All right. So these are important things. Okay. That's number one. So those relationships are important. Okay. Because that's going to affect dynamics going forward in your adult life. Okay. Well, we're getting into some deep things today, you guys. Okay. Because I want to make sure it's very clear. Okay. It's crystal clear with what we're doing here and what we're addressing. Okay. Because these are the things that when situations evolve, that if how you're identified and how you view yourself, your I am is skewed, then the way you're going to perceive and the way you're going to respond and the way you're going to allow for the dynamic to evolve is going to be reflective of those original things. Okay. So single parents kind of take on both roles. Yes. Okay. But when that occurs, that doesn't, this is where there's certain, like, one parent can really do a lot, right? But there's still certain needs that need to be met, right? And then you go into, again, this is where comparison comes into play. So if you're like raised in a single family home and then you see other kids and they have both parents, that's going to, it creates this self image of something's wrong with me, something's wrong with me, and that's why this isn't showing up in my life. Okay. And also think about that too. If you're a woman attracted to men and you had a single mother as your only support system, then you have no belief system surrounding normalizing a man being a consistent presence in your life. Okay. Being able to normalize that affection, normalize that love, see that as something that you're deserving and worthy of, right? Okay. So nuances to these things. Okay. All right. Another aspect to this here as well too. Again, I'm talking to individuals that in their first initial relationship experiences, they were not great. Home life matters. Okay. Another thing, school life, right? So again, you pick up beliefs through repeated experiences, ways of identifying and assuming yourself to be and how things show up for you based off of experiences that confirm that true to you. So that's one aspect. The other aspect too is if through your experiences in school, whether it be elementary, junior, high school, whatever it is, okay, if you experience bullying, hostility, getting made fun of, maybe you liked guys and every guy you liked, they rejected you, they got with somebody else, those things are going to also affect and reaffirm some of those things within you. Okay. All right. So once we take a look at all those things, all right, that's going to be where you can see what needs to be addressed within yourself. Again, okay, we're talking about assuming a new version of yourself. Okay. Do you need to necessarily figure out every single limiting belief that you have? No. But you do want to make sure that you're looking at things that you have patterned struggles with. Okay. Because let's say I want to fix a relationship and materialize a marriage, but the reason why my relationships have degraded is because I'm not able to normalize the presence of a man being consistent in my life or normalize affection, or I don't see myself as somebody that deserves that, then it's going to be very difficult. And I don't have any experience with being able to fix relationships in my life, then it's going to be very difficult for me to believe that I can get married. And it's also going to be very difficult for me to believe and create the experience of fixing this relationship. And a part of fixing that relationship could be overcoming those things so that I don't consistently recreate the same patterns, ways of reacting, getting triggered in the same ways that are reflective of that old way of identifying. This is what it means to kill off the old man. Okay. You're no longer identifying with the previous ways that you were conditioned and viewing yourself and viewing this area of your life. Okay. All right. I know that was that. Okay. So within the context of circumstances with where you are now, one thing that I've said in my content is you want to take a growth approach. So yes, you can fix relationships, you can turn situations around, but instead of just jumping straight to persisting in specific results, you want to look back at things and how they've unfolded, why they've unfolded, and take the appropriate amount of ownership and accountability to make those adjustments within yourself so that you can grow and change into a new version of yourself that can then entertain the outcomes and has moved on from the past. Okay. In dynamics, all right, one thing that I want you guys to look at is when something is occurring. So let's say when somebody's not treating you properly, or when you're in situations that are not the best that perpetuate, okay? Do you deserve that? No. You don't deserve somebody to not treat you properly, and you don't deserve to stay in situations where people are disrespecting you, not honoring you, not showing up for you in the ways that are loving and consistent and caring. Okay. So, when it comes to the context of taking the appropriate amount of ownership and accountability for circumstances that evolved previously, I don't want you to sit here and think, I created this person to completely treat me like crap and I have to take full responsibility for what they did to me. The part that I want you to look at is why did I, what were the insecurities, doubts, fears, ways of identifying that led up to this, and why did I stay in that situation and accept it? Okay. When it comes, one thing that's really interesting to me with the subconscious and the conscious mind is we can have conscious desires and we can have a conscious grasp on what is or is not acceptable. Okay. But meaning, nobody really wakes up and says, I want to have a shitty, toxic relationship. Okay. Nobody wakes up and says, for the most part, okay, I want to have a really difficult relationship where I'm not treated properly and somebody treats me like crap, right? On a conscious level, we say, yeah, I want something that's healthy. I want something that's consistent. I want somebody that cares for me, that shows up for me in loving ways where we understand one another and we grow together, right? Here's the thing though, okay? We can consciously want those things, but if how we are subconsciously identified, predicated on our previous experiences, is not in alignment with that conscious thing that we want, then we are going to be attracted to and perpetuating whatever it is that we're identified with. Which is why I said I want you to look at why you may have stayed in particular situations, because, and this all plays into how you respond to things as well too. If you're silencing yourself, if you're not respecting yourself, if you're accepting particular things, if you're not walking away from particular situations, then they're going to perpetuate because you're accepting it. The identity that you're in is permitting and accepting this to be your consistent experience. Even if on a conscious level you don't like it, you're mere entertaining of it and allowing of it through continually letting it be in your life is a part of, you're identified in ways that are attracted to that. Okay. So let's say I hold a belief like having a loving, consistent man in my life is not a normalized experience for me. Okay. And then I'm in a relationship and somebody's not consistent with me. Okay. On a conscious level, I want them to be consistent with me because I want a loving, consistent relationship consciously. Subconsciously, though, I hold a belief like having a loving, consistent man is not a normal experience for me. Then, when this person shows up not being consistent with me, because that matches my base belief system and what I believe about myself for this area of my life, that's actually what I'm attracted to. So I'm going to argue with it. I'm going to try and get this person on a conscious level, I'm going to try and get them to show up for me. Okay. But my mere entertaining of it and arguing with it and allowing of it says that that's actually what I think I deserve. Okay. So the way in which you handle situations allows for them to perpetuate. Okay. Does that mean you're going to take responsibility for this person necessarily doing those things? No, because if they're doing shitty things, they need to take the responsibility and apologize for whatever they're doing. But there's a reason why you're entertaining it and getting hooked up on it and allowing for it to go for whatever range of time it's going for. Okay. When you change those things, okay, when you change those belief systems about what you believe about yourself or this area of your life, you're not going to give a fuck or allow that type of treatment into your life. And it's not even going to come into your awareness. And you're going to handle situations completely differently. You're not going to feel the need to argue with somebody. You're not going to feel the desire to chase after them. You're not going to be dwelling on them in your mind, trying to figure out how to get them to love you. You're not going to be any of that. you're going to be more grounded in, this is who I am, this is how this area of my life shows up. Okay, I really care about you, you're cute, but if you think you're going to run that game on me, that's not going to work for me. Okay, and it's that way of identifying and responding that is not only attractive, but doesn't allow those dynamics to form. And because you're in that identity, you're also able to hold an internal knowing that somebody's going to show up for you in the way that you deserve because that's your normalized experience. Okay? All right. Whew. These are deep topics. Okay. All right. So, with all of that being said, okay, another component, that's the self-concept perspective. Okay, so when you are negatively attached to something or struggling with it mentally, okay, and it's a persistent thing in your life, you want to look at, this is why I've said in a lot of content, okay, you want to look at, what do I believe about myself or this area of my life, and adjust that generally. Because it's going to be very difficult to think about a situation differently, maintain that awareness, and handle things in your physical reality differently when you're still identified in the same way that perpetuated and allowed for that dynamic to form. When you change in your identity, when you change the scope at which you're viewing something, because you have changed as an individual, you're going to think about it differently. You're going to handle the situation differently. You're going to move forward differently. You're going to persist differently. And you're not going to allow particular things into your life, which is why you're able to change the dynamic. Okay? Whew. Okay. So these are the things that you need to take into consideration, though, when you're making these changes, because everything is happening for a reason. You're perceiving things for a particular reason. You're responding in a particular reason. You're allowing things for a particular reason. Okay? So I don't want you guys to take full responsibility for, like, you know, if somebody's being shitty, but you have to see, like, and this is what I've said in previous live streams too, what about how I'm identified or what I believe about myself in this area of my life and how I'm showing up gave somebody the idea that they thought it was appropriate or okay for them to approach me this way. Okay. Now, here's the other nuance to this too. Okay. When you change in your self concept, that doesn't mean that no bullshit happens in your life. Okay. I've also said how you respond or how you perceive, how you value things, and how you respond is creating as well too. So when you're in a very, very grounded self-concept, even if somebody tries to do something or give you something that you know you don't deserve, it's not going to trigger you. It's not going to serve as evidence of who you are, what you're creating in your life. And you're also going to be able to respond to it and handle it in a way that does not allow that to be your consistent experience. Okay. So what I'm saying here is, if somebody is consistently doing something, okay, and like somebody's constantly cheating on you, or they're lying to you, or they're playing a game on you, or they're talking to you disrespectfully, or they're treating you bad, right? Yes, I understand you don't deserve that. Okay, you might just get to a point where you're like, fuck this, I'm out. Okay, I'm over this. Okay. But my whole thing is, I don't want you to go into other relationships and recreate that, right? And if you want to change a dynamic with somebody, you can do that. The thing that I want you to look at, though, is, how have I shown up? Who have I assumed myself to be? What identity have I taken on? And how have I handled situations that gave this person the impression that it was okay to approach me in this manner, that I was going to accept it? Have I accepted things like this in the past? Have I silenced myself? Have I been afraid? Have I dishonored myself, disrespected myself, undervalued myself, or shown in any capacity in how I'm showing up that this is acceptable for me? Okay. So that's the only area that I want you to take ownership and accountability in. And maybe if you've had negative beliefs or assumptions and that caused you to do things that you need to apologize for. Okay. It's so hard to forgive yourself. All right. Well, we'll talk about that, because think about what I'm saying here. And I've talked about this before. Okay. When it comes to adjusting self-concept, this was a really, really good point to bring up right now, and then we're going to go over into nervous system regulation. And then I'm going to give you guys an overview of everything I'm talking about here. Okay. You will naturally forgive yourself as you apply yourself and you shift your beliefs. Okay. So even that in and of itself could be a manifestation of a previous way of identifying. Maybe you experienced things growing up where people were hypercritical towards you, extremely judgmental towards you, and if you did anything wrong, they withdrew love, affection, or particular forms of treatment, right? So you experienced things where forgiveness was not given to you. So therefore, you hold a belief like, I'm not able to be forgiven. I'm not able to, again, create solutions in my life, whatever it may be. Okay. So that could be a component. Okay. The other thing that I've noticed though is when you actually change these things and ways of identifying your I am, okay, you will naturally come into that forgiveness with yourself and extend that compassion. Because everything that I'm talking about here is essentially you've gone through experiences that were out of your control when you were younger, that negatively impacted you, that subconsciously skewed how you view yourself or a particular area of your life. And that's that at that point that was out of your control. Okay. As adults, we have the ability to consciously create and design our life however we please. So with that, we have to take the responsibility of who we are choosing to be, whether we're conscious of that or not. That's where the responsibility piece comes into play. So it's not to beat yourself up or to make yourself feel bad. It's just realizing that you picked up certain ways of identifying and viewing yourself and viewing particular areas of your life from experiences that were out of your control. And now as an adult, you have the opportunity to change that so that you no longer recreate those things. And so you tend to be able to extend forgiveness and compassion to yourself once you shift out of identifying that way, because the new identity that you're existing in permits that actual forgiveness, right? Because you've grown. Sometimes it can be very difficult to forgive yourself in the moment when you're still identified in old ways, because there's a tendency to be hypercritical and harsh on yourself, especially if you're dysregulated in your nervous system. You're not fully grounded in a new way of viewing yourself or viewing your life. And so it keeps you kind of wrapped up in that same state of being. Okay. So if you're having a hard time forgiving yourself right now for previous ways of operating, accepting things that you shouldn't have accepted, or showing up and operating in ways that you shouldn't have operated in, know that as you apply yourself and you address these things, that forgiveness and that compassion towards yourself will naturally evolve as you shift and change. Okay. All right. Next thing. Okay. That's self-concept. When you address your self-concept and you change these foundational things from how you view yourself and view particular areas of your life, entertaining and creating desired outcomes is going to become easy for you, because you're doing that already, just not in a way that you like. Okay. You're not learning to do anything differently here, you guys. You're doing these things just in ways that you don't like. So if I don't hold good beliefs about myself, a particular area of my life, and I've normalized those things as my experience, and I'm noticing that those things keep recreating in my life, and I'm struggling with intrusive thoughts and behaviors, and I'm like, for instance, let's say, I grew up without, I'm going to use a father as an example. Okay. I don't want to sit here and talk about fathers and mothers all day long, but I'm going to use this as an example because it is a central thing, right? Like, a lot of people don't have the best family dynamics. There are some people that are born with a really good family dynamic, but for the most part, that's not a consistent experience. Okay, for a majority of people. And there's also two nuances to that as well too. So again, think about what I said there. Okay, how that person showed up for you on all levels. So being mentally there for you, emotionally there for you, supportive, affectionate, caring, kind, consistent. Okay. You could say, yeah, both my parents were in my life and they cared about me, but were they actually meeting those particular needs? Okay. It's not to think that they're bad people or anything like that. Okay. I'm just taking a very critical and honest observation on it so that you can take that same critical, honest observation on it. Okay. So, with your self concept, I got to get back on track now. Okay. I keep getting pulled in a whole bunch of different directions because I want to make sure all these things are very clear. We're talking about forgiveness. Okay. You'll naturally come into that forgiveness, shifting in your self concept, normalizing these experiences, something that you've already done before. Okay. So let's say you were raised in a household where you didn't necessarily have a consistent male figure in your life. Okay. So you hold some beliefs like, it's not normal for me to have a consistently loving, caring male in my life. I don't see myself as somebody that gets what they want out of life, out of love. Okay. Then if those are beliefs that you hold and those are things that are going on subconsciously, okay, then when a man shows up in your life that you do want, that reflects those characteristics and qualities, okay, and then you start getting into a fearful, doubtful space and start entertaining undesirable things, or you're not able to normalize this experience, you start having worries, doubts, or fears that you start mentally persisting in, and then that relationship kind of falls apart, or whatever your fears are start to materialize. It's the same exact thing, right? You're just naturally doing it. And this is why I say, if creating what you don't want can be simple, then creating what you do want can be simple too. It just comes down to the identity that you're in. So if you change that to having a loving, caring, supportive man in my life is a normal, consistent experience for me, and I see myself as somebody that deserves to be with somebody that they want to be with, that's a normal experience for me, then when that person shows up, okay, you're going to be able to normalize that experience. And in your mind, you're going to naturally have thoughts of them wanting you and pursuing you and liking you and being in your life. And that's a natural thing for you. And you're going to be naturally entertaining that and allowing it to unfold. Just like how if it was in the opposite direction, those thoughts were naturally there. You're naturally entertaining it and showing up, and those things naturally unfolded. You're doing the same exact thing. We're just consciously doing it in the opposite direction now. Okay. All right. So there's nuances here too, okay, in terms of relationships and self-judgment, okay? So I've seen some people struggle with like, what if I saw a question on the membership live as well too, essentially saying like, I have kids, okay, guys show up, they're interested in me, they tell me that they're interested in having kids, but then they ghost me, right? And so how do I get past this? That's where I want you to really look and see, like, do you see yourself in terms of how you're valuing yourself? Do you see yourself as somebody that people will go above and beyond and do anything for, are going to pursue you, are going to be a consistent part of your life, are going to accept you as you are, you fully accept yourself as you are, and you're able to build a healthy, lasting relationship with whoever you desire and overcome challenges together. And again, remember what I just said earlier. When you're in a particular identity that supports the outcome that you desire, anything that is not reflective of that, you're not going to get mentally hooked up on it, right? So even if a guy shows up and they're like, yeah, I'm really into you, and then they say, I don't know, like I want commitment, but I don't know, like you have kids, or maybe they start showing some kind of incongruency with this, okay? Instead of being like, oh crap, are they not going to be interested? Is this not going to happen? And then forming a negative attachment and kind of obsessing or dwelling on them in your mind, you're going to be in a space of like, no, whoever I'm with is going to accept me for whoever I am. They totally love me. I can grow and overcome challenges in a relationship. I don't need to worry about this. Whether this person wants to be with me or not, that is not going to define my ability to create this relationship. And having kids is not an issue or anything that is going to be able to prevent me from creating the relationship that I desire. And because you're grounded in that and you're identified in that manner, instead of getting triggered with what this person is doing or saying and entertaining it, okay, you're like, oh, okay, you know what? If you're not that sure, no worries. Okay, because you know in your mind that there are plenty of people that will be, and you don't have to chase after a single thing because you're self-recognized. Because you respond in that way, and because you handle the situation in that manner, it's extremely attractive, right? I'm not desperate for you. I don't need you to want me to know that I'm wanted. And it's that way of operating that really allows for somebody to pursue you in the ways that you deserve instead of chasing after them and trying to get them to accept you and choose you. You're already there. You're already identified in that manner. And that's where those patterns stop. You no longer see it as something that you have to consistently deal with in your experience. And because of that, because you're no longer entertaining it or bringing it into your awareness or viewing it as a problem that you have in your life, it stops becoming a problem in your life. Okay. So think about the nuances too in terms of how people show up for you. Okay. If you experience people being inconsistent in your life or not being able to grow in relationships with you or overcome challenges or recognizing your worth and your value and loving you for who you are, then when somebody comes into your life and treats you in manners that don't reflect that, it's going to very negatively trigger you, and you're going to see it, whatever the circumstance is, as a issue that you now have to deal with. Whether you have kids or not, you can still create the relationship that you desire. Okay. But that comes down to a belief standpoint. All right. So we've talked about self-concept. Okay. Same thing with one more thing. Same thing with fixing a relationship, right? If I've never seen somebody fix a relationship before, that's never been my consistent experience. Then when I go through a breakup or when something comes up, okay, that is not desirable, it's going to very negatively trigger me. And I'm going to be mentally in a space where I feel defeated, like I'm not able to turn the situation around because I don't hold the beliefs or the identity that supports that experience. So thinking that I might have thoughts of somebody moving on from me, them getting with somebody else, thoughts of a third party, worried that they're going to forget me, that they're not going to care about me anymore, because I don't identify as somebody that can fix a relationship or create solutions in love, right? If I identify as somebody that can create a relationship, fix a relationship, create solutions in love, whatever it may be, I'm not going to be mentally bogged down with those types of thoughts. And I'm not going to see that really come in as my experience. Or even if they do talk to other people, I'm not going to be negatively triggered by it. I'm going to be in a space where it's like, okay, whatever. Like they can never even compare to me. Like, thank you, talk to them, because that's just going to serve as more evidence as to why you should fucking be with me. Like, you're going to learn real quick. Okay. All right. Those are the natural thoughts that you have. Okay. I'm now talking about the automatic thoughts that you have. Okay. Which again, think about how attractive that is in terms of attracting something into your life, right? But that also serves you from a manifestational perspective as well. Okay, that's self-concept, right? When we get those things in alignment, then it's a lot easier to think about desired outcomes, persist in them, and create them as our experience. Also, how we're handling situations, behaviorally moving about our reality is going to be in alignment with that identity as well too, which is how you respond and show up in attractive ways that create that result as well too. Okay. All right. Nervous system. Okay. So we just talked about self-concept, where certain things may be stemming from, identifying patterns and where that comes from with how you view yourself and how you view this area of your life. Relationships are nuanced because you have to take into consideration yourself, what you believe you deserve, the treatment that you think you're worthy of, your self-worth, self-respect, how you're valuing yourself. But you also have to take into consideration how relationships show up for you, how men show up for you, how women show up for you, affection. Are you able to normalize affection, emotional, what type of individuals you may be attracted to, okay? Somebody being there for you, supportive in a mental and emotional sphere, okay? Committing to you, okay? Normalizing that commitment. So there's a few nuances to that, right? If you've never normalized those things before, okay, seeing yourself as somebody that gets commitment and somebody sees your value and they want to be with you for who you are, okay, then entertaining that you're in a marriage and you're going to be able to create a marriage is going to be difficult, right? Or sustain a marriage that is reflective of what you actually want to experience is going to be difficult because you're going to be constantly getting triggered, assuming the worst, living in a space of insecurity, doubt, and fear, projecting those insecurity, doubts, and fears onto different circumstances and situations, and persisting in those insecurities, worries, doubts, fears, disbelief until that becomes your experience, which I don't want for you. It's not very fun. Okay. And it's not very fun to live there mentally either, what I just talked about. The other thing, okay, I said you need to take into account your belief system. You also need to take into account your physiological state. Now, I also understand for women, this might be a little bit more difficult, right? I'm a little bit, I don't want to say blessed, but men have a little bit of an advantage in this regard, in the sense that we don't have constantly fluctuating hormones, right? And so the hormone fluctuation that women experience is extreme. I don't want to discredit that. Okay. So when I'm talking about your nervous system or your feeling state, I'm not talking about having to be perfect, to have no emotions, to only be happy 24/7. Throw the word vibration out of your vocabulary. Don't need it. Okay. But, okay, there may be certain times, okay, where, being regulated in that manner is difficult, okay, because your hormones are going like this, okay? And hormones are nothing to fuck with, okay? Like they make a huge, they very impact you a lot, okay? You can build up a whole belief system, okay, to like, things are easier for me during that time, okay? But also, like, come on, let's dig into our biology and our physiology, okay? The thing with nervous system regulation that is important to me is, when you identify in a particular way, you're going to be able to hold a knowing that is dominantly confident. It's normalized, okay? So to me, feeling is a secret is when I'm in this version of myself, I'm going to be able to entertain something, and that's a normalized experience for me. The feeling a state associated with whatever it is that I want to create is going to be relaxed. Okay. I'm not going to be negatively attached, obsessed, going on emotional highs and lows. Like, I'm going to be able to entertain something as a normalized thing that I can create in my life. Okay. So I'm able to elicit whatever feelings that I want within myself. I'm not really feeling lack. Like, I'm just dominantly in a pretty relaxed, confident space. Okay. Like anything else that is a normalized part of your life. So if you have a car and it's out in your driveway and you're not worried about it, it's a normalized experience for you to have that thing in your life. You can hold the entertaining that you have that car. You just are able to normalize that experience in your life. Okay. With nervous system regulation, okay, everything that I just talked about in terms of beliefs, okay, that's pretty deep. Okay. We're going to talk about how you can normalize it. That's your beliefs. Okay. So everything that I just talked about there was kind of deep, right? So now you're probably seeing why, like in the attractor ideal man or attractor ideal woman track that I have on my channel, there's beliefs about yourself, beliefs about men, affection, intimacy, all these different aspects, right? Because shifting in how you're identified, who you assume yourself to be in a particular area of your life, it might be vast and deep depending on the experiences that you've had. Okay. Some people, maybe they don't need to address as many of those things. So there's other tracks like Limitless Love, where it's just love, right? Again, take into account yourself. Okay. That's why I also have different variations, okay, of things from different angles, depending on kind of what somebody might need. When it comes to nervous system regulation, okay, the reason why that's important is because those beliefs are there too, partially as a defense mechanism. I just did a whole live stream on nervous system regulation. Okay. I know I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. The thing that I wanted to touch on right now, though, is that stuff that we just talked about is kind of deep. So imagine trying to change all those beliefs when you're awake. Like, I'm gonna be in a fucking room for 6 years writing affirmations over and over again. Okay, like not seeing the light of day. No, thank you. Okay, there can be quite a few things that need to be adjusted, right? And so this is where I prioritize sustainability in my approach and what has really, really helped me. Okay. This is why the nighttime affirmation recordings are really beneficial because you can address a lot of things that are going on subconsciously at nighttime. And plus, it's not very fun to address that all during the day. Ugh. Okay. We're going to talk about what you do during the day in a second. Okay. So you're addressing a lot of things at nighttime, right? Now, I've talked about you can go to I am statements or you can go to growth statements. Again, take into account yourself. So if you have had, let's say you're somebody that didn't have the best upbringing, and then you have a lot of really negative relationship experiences to serve as evidence to reaffirm those ways of identifying, then you may want to take a more gentle approach with yourself. Okay. Meaning, instead of jumping straight to a brand new way of identifying, you're taking a more growth approach. I'm starting to see myself this way. I'm starting to accept that this is true. I'm starting to believe. I'm starting to normalize. Okay. I'm starting to become somebody. Okay. So that goes into how you're using your nighttime recording, but that's also tied into nervous system regulation. So when you take on a new way of identifying, if you have a lot of supporting experiences to a previous way of identifying, then your mind and the resistance that people are talking about, okay, when they are trying to shift in how they're identified, is your mind is in ways trying to reject this and say, if you believe this, you're going to get hurt. Okay. So, like, your mind's trying to protect you, essentially. Okay. So, that's one where persistence is important. Okay. And accurately identifying what you're struggling with and addressing that is important. And two, nervous system regulation is important. You need to bring in enough persistence and show your body that it is safe to identify in this way and normalize this in your mindset so that you can successfully integrate into this version of yourself without it being this crazy turbulent process. Okay. Nervous system regulation is manually overriding your body's nervous system response and self inducing a space of safety and security within yourself so that your mind and body does not push against this way of identifying. Okay. That's what that's there for. So it's not that you need to be high vibe, rainbows and sunshines all the time. You have to be in a perfect mood all the time. You have to feel a particular way all the time. Okay. If you have hormone fluctuations and things going on, you're human, it's fine. The whole thing is you want to integrate into this way of identifying, which you'll notice when you take on a new identity, you're going to not struggle with things that you held previously before. So, in ways, it feels like your vibration is going up because you're becoming more happy and more stable and more secure within yourself and more confident within yourself. So, naturally, the state in which you're existing in tends to feel better because I'm not carrying around all this subconscious shit that's weighing me down, causing me to materialize a whole bunch of intrusive thoughts and contradicting behaviors and just like struggling mentally. So you just naturally increase, I guess, or raise your vibe. Okay. But it's not like you have to feel a particular way to get what you want. You can be frustrated and get what you want. You can be, you know, happy and get what you want. You can be sad and get what you want. You know, there are people that have ways of identifying where, you know, I'm worthy of a loving relationship even if I'm upset. Okay. So you're still able to maintain a relationship or dynamic. So don't think that you have to feel a particular way to get what you want. It's just when we're taking into consideration making these changes, you need to take into consideration how your body may respond to those changes on a physiological level because you've normalized a particular belief system, a way of identifying, a particular way of feeling. And so as you're changing that, you have to take that into consideration. Okay. All right. So let's talk about persistence now. Okay. It's important to make this change that I'm talking about here first, in my opinion, before you try to really, really, really persist in specific results. Okay. Does that mean that you can't think about what you want? No. Does that mean that you have to avoid what you want? No. Does that mean that you like have to just like, completely detach from your life? No. But I am telling you that if you want to place a dominant focus on self-concept, especially if it's deep things that you struggle with, so that you can really create this change, turn around situations, or materialize something brand new in a sustainable manner. Okay. When it comes to consistency, okay, I'm going to use the gym as an example, okay, and how you apply this also during the day, okay, because I just talked about nighttime recordings, okay, and I talked about nervous system regulation. So, depending on where you are, you might need to do some more things for your nervous system in a more disciplined fashion, and then meaning like breath work or something 2 to 3 times a day. And then as you move out of a triggered space, you can replace that with something like going to the gym or other activities that you enjoy that just integrate in as a natural part of your routine and day-to-day life. Okay. But when it comes to persistence, okay, I gotta explain one other thing. Okay. I'm gonna take a step back. Gotta make sure I paint this message very clear for all of you so nobody has any questions. Okay. You're addressing a lot of things at nighttime, right? But then during the day, you may have a consistent story, consistent intrusive thoughts, or behaviors that you're struggling with. Okay. So, yes, nighttime recordings help a lot. But if there's something that you're struggling with during the day that you're avoiding or you're not addressing, that thing that you're not addressing is keeping you locked into that way of identifying. Okay. So you could use a nighttime recording, and if you persist in a lot, eventually you'll get out of that thought pattern and that ways of operating. But if you can address that in short little periods each day, okay, you're going to help your mind when you're awake get out of that way of identifying, which allows for you to step into this new version of yourself fully. Okay. So what you're doing during the day does matter too, right? And so if we're just sitting here spiraling all day long, thinking the same things, reacting the same ways, not doing anything productive with our time, not stabilizing our nervous system, not designing a day that feels good, and just wallowing in the same way of identifying, that's not going to feel good, and it's not going to be an enjoyable process for you, and it's going to drag the process out longer. But I'm not talking about affirming all day long or driving yourself crazy doing 20 million fucking affirmations for a result. Okay. So this is the example that I'm going to use. Okay. If you go to the gym and you want to build muscle, okay, then you need to target a specific muscle group, and then you're going to do 4 sets of whatever exercise. Okay. You're going to focus on it intensely, do the exercise, and then you're done, and you're going to give it a few days, and you're going to trust and allow for the muscle to grow. Right. So short intentional sessions, the body responds to short intentional consistent sessions, rest periods, and allowing for the change to materialize. Right. Now in your mind, you need a little bit more consistency than in muscle growth because, like this is something that you're dealing with all day, every day, right? Doesn't mean that you're gonna be sitting here affirming all the time though, okay? It's just short, intentional little sessions. So if during the day I'm struggling with particular thoughts and behaviors, okay, if I can identify what those thoughts and behaviors are stemming from in my self-concept and address that with short little intentional meditations, then I'm going to find that with a level of persistence and discipline, I no longer struggle with that in my mind during the day. And then whatever I'm using at nighttime starts to really surface up into how I'm organizing myself, identified, perceiving my reality, moving about my reality. Okay. So that's going to really help you step into a new version of yourself, is not avoiding anything, but addressing. Same thing with how you're organizing yourself in your reality. If there are things you're running from, avoiding, hiding from, fearing, not addressing, those are the things that you need to address. So you ideally want to be in a place where you can see something undesirable and it no longer triggers you. You can handle it in a regulated manner, and you can hold a inner knowing on the desired outcome. So if you're deleting things off your phone, if you're avoiding certain things, if you're reorganizing your entire day to avoid particular things so that you're not getting negatively triggered, if you need to do that right now for your mental health, that's a great choice. But also, I want you to address why you're doing that. Right. So I don't want to go on here because I'm going to stalk somebody because I don't think that I can fix a relationship. All right. So let me make sure I address that in daily meditation so I no longer struggle with these thoughts or behaviors during the day, and I don't have to avoid anything, and I can enjoy and normalize different aspects of my life without running from them, avoiding them, or fearing them. Okay. All right. Okay. we got through that spiel. So we did. This is all coming from, I got this mental map down. Okay, I think I'm hitting all the points I want to hit, everything that needs to be said. Okay. All right. So if you get very disciplined with this, you can create this change pretty quickly. The body responds pretty quickly, right? It just comes down to consistency and discipline. So nighttime, you're changing a lot of things. We're addressing what we're struggling with, and we're also adding in things that the version of us that can maintain what we want, becoming that person. During the day, we're stabilizing in our nervous system, and we're addressing what we're struggling with in our thoughts and behaviors. Okay. By the time you do that and you stabilize into a new version of yourself, you're going to notice the change. You're going to know when you're there. You're not going to be getting negatively triggered anymore. You're not going to be attached to the past anymore. Your awareness is going to shift. You're going to kind of not give a fuck. You're not going to feel like you're waiting for anything. You're going to start to see people, places, and things begin to show up in new ways that are confirming this way of identifying. You're going to organize yourself differently. You are going to change. Okay. You're going to know, it's going to be very evident. Okay. You're going to notice a complete change in the quality of thought and how you're organizing yourself during the day. You're not going to give a shit about the previous set of circumstances or be attached to that shit anymore. Okay. You're just going to change your awareness. You're going to move in your awareness, your day-to-day awareness. Okay. You may even notice the specific person or whatever it is that you want to experience starts to come into your life. Cool. All right. If you want to mentally persist in something, then do that. Do you have to persist though? Do you have to affirm for something or to visualize or these things? Not necessarily. You can if you want to. But just like I said earlier, okay, if in the past you held particular beliefs, which caused you to think in particular ways and entertain particular things in your mind, and you did that naturally, and then those things happened, then when you change those beliefs, you're going to do it in the opposite direction. Okay. Or you're going to hold an inner knowing. You've normalized this area of your life so much that that's just how it is. I'm somebody that gets commitment. I don't got to worry about this. You're going to be into me. I don't even need to really bring deliberation or like affirm this to myself. That's just going to be my experience. Okay. If you want to persist though, you're not going to be battling yourself. There's not going to be any urgency. You're going to be able to entertain something in your mind and just entertain it and then not really worry about it. Okay. Come out of whatever practice you're doing and go about your day. And then if you want to revisit it and reaffirm it again, or whatever technique you like to do, you're going to do that, but you're not going to find yourself forming negative attachments, obsessions, feeling like you're waiting for anything, checking, anything like that. It's going to be if your identity is congruent with that desired outcome, your I am is congruent with what you want to experience, you're going to be able to entertain it and allow for it to unfold. Okay. So what a lot of people are trying to do is their identity, their I am, is not congruent with their desired outcomes. Okay. And they're entertaining something and maybe that materializes. Maybe they entertain it so much they fucking pound those affirmations in their head so hard that it materializes. But then the old way of identifying is still there. Okay. Or the old I am, whatever, the original way of identifying that led to problems is still there. So then the pattern repeats and then whatever comes in is not sustained. Okay. Or the other thing that people are doing is they're not addressing their I am. Okay. And they're trying to entertain themselves of desired outcomes. They can't believe it. They're mentally battling themselves along the way the entire time. They're getting distressed. They're feeling delusional. They're obsessing and they're spiraling out until they give up and they don't even see how this thing can be their experience. And they just completely walk away from the process thinking it doesn't work or it's not real. Okay. Neville Goddard is talking about I am, self-concept, creating your life and using your imagination to create what you want to experience in your life it's just a natural thing that we do. We have visions for what we want to experience. Somebody thought of this design in their mind originally, right? They had to think of this. They had a vision for a fan and they were in an identity that supported being able to create this fan. So they created it, right? So you use your imagination all the time. It's a natural component. It's a necessary component to human evolution. In order for us to expand as a species, we had to develop the capability of mentally constructing things, okay, visualizing things, inventing things to increase our quality of life. We had to develop the ability to visualize beyond where we currently are to create new experiences. Okay, that's just a natural part of our evolution. Are we in an identity and a belief system that supports being able to bring those visions in as our experience? That's what you're focusing on. When you go through those self-concept changes, entertaining desired outcomes is going to be very easy for you. And you're going to be able to handle situations in completely brand new ways and in regulated ways, mature, attractive ways that also allow for you and lead to the unfolding of those experiences in a sustained manner. If you're feeling obsessed, stressed out, panicked, anything like that, you don't feel like you're growing, okay? You feel like every day you're just consuming content and you're just always triggered all the time and nothing's really changing. Are you actually addressing what you're struggling with? Okay. And are you doing things during the day that are actually helping you? Because if you're doing those two things and you're making a foundational change in your I am, okay, your self-concept, you're not going to find that stuff really happening. Okay. So that is why Neville Goddard said, no one to change but self. Okay. Everybody and everything is you push out. He's talking about what you believe about yourself and what you believe about this area of your life is going to form your perceptions, how you're moving about your reality, how you're mentally entertaining things, what you're allowing into your experience, what you're not allowing into your experience, which feeds into different dynamics and how they evolve in your life. So instead of trying to change people or circumstances, change yourself, take on a new I am, decide what's going to happen in your life, allow that to unfold. And if you're actually in that identity, you're going to naturally organize yourself in the ways that will support that evolution. Don't try and force it. Okay. It shouldn't be anything delusional, illogical. Like it should be a growth process of taking actual inventory of the experiences you've been through in your life and addressing that on a belief level about yourself and this area of your life and the things that are tied into that, right? So again, a loving relationship, okay? If you've never experienced a loving relationship before, or every relationship that you've been in, the dynamic has been toxic or not good, then you got to really look at the intricacies of what goes into that from a belief standpoint about yourself and that area of your life, okay? That is what you're addressing. So overall, the approach to mindset should be, unless, and I gave again, a kind of nuance or condition here at the beginning, if you've had really good beliefs, you're not like super negatively triggered and like you're able to entertain things in your mind and that's a normal experience for you. You just have never like kind of consciously done that before, then it's going to be easy for you to entertain desired outcomes and create that as your experience. Okay. If that's where you are, great, cool. Love that for you. Okay. If that's not where you are, then my suggestion is focus purely on self-concept. Okay. Until you make a sustained enough change within yourself where you can normalize the experience you want to bring into your life, where you're not negatively attached to it, obsessed with it, waiting for it. Okay. That's why I have a bunch of different content on my channel for like, how to handle different situations. Okay. Choosing your responses wisely. Okay. Your top tier, start acting like it because that new version of you is not going to give a fuck about the things that you previously struggled with. They're not going to entertain it. And they're going to do that pretty shamelessly sometimes. Okay. They're not going to allow it into their life and they're going to know their worth and their value and what they're creating and allow for that to show up as their experience rather than taking the position of chasing after it and accepting what they don't want. Okay. Okay. And yeah, that's how you approach shifting your mindset. Okay. So to wrap that all up, we're going to look at what we've struggled with previously. Okay. And when we're in bad dynamics, we're going to look at how that evolved, why that may have evolved, take inventory of, is this something, maybe we had a traumatic experience and that negatively impacted us. So now we need to address that. Or is this something deeper that's stemming from childhood or things I experienced growing up, okay, that are leading to the evolution of these dynamics in my current day reality. Okay. Once we identify that, we're going to address those beliefs, build a really good, solid belief track at nighttime that addresses that, word it in a way that feels good to us, whether we want to go a growth approach or straight up brand new I am beliefs. Okay. Once we build that, then during the day, we're going to build a good daily routine for ourselves, stabilize in our nervous system, and address our worries, doubts, fears, or the intrusive thoughts and behaviors that we're struggling with. We're going to build up enough consistency around that until we start to feel a change within ourselves. We start to assume a new version of ourselves consistently, at that point, we should start to notice people, places, and things start showing up differently that start confirming this new way of identifying. Our perception starts changing. We aren't as attached to the previous things that happened before. We're able to respond in new ways and handle situations differently. And from that point forward, once you notice that change, if you want to bring a conscious technique into persisting with what you want to create, great. Or if you want to just know, oh, I'm in this version of myself, that's a normal experience for me, I don't got to worry about it, then you're going to be able to just decide and allow for things to unfold in your life. Okay. So I hope that's clear. Okay. This has taken me quite some time to really understand myself and figure out after years and years and years of struggling. So I hope that my explanation of it, okay, is clear and you understand the points behind it all. Okay. It does not have to take a lot, but if you take the approach and the advice that I'm giving you here, I know not everybody is talking about nervous system regulation online or really breaking it down in the way that I'm explaining, but these things that I'm talking about will put you in the position to no longer recreate the things that are extremely painful in your life. Okay. Or to continue to experience, entertain, accept, allow things into your life that you don't want to experience. So yes, you can create specific results, but I want you to think about long-term sustainability behind what you're doing. The whole premise of these things is really making a change within yourself, okay? Getting specific things that you want out of life is not difficult. Attracting a man into your life, not difficult. Attracting a woman into your life, not difficult. Being successful in your career, not difficult. Being able to build a successful career, not difficult. Turning around your financial situations and creating specific results financially, not difficult. Okay. Achievable, possible. People are doing it every day. The only difference between you and a person that's doing it is how you identify, the mindset that you have, which has nothing to do with convincing yourself that specific result. It has everything to do with who you believe you are, who you assume yourself to be. I am. Okay. All right. Beautiful. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Okay. Just casual Tuesday conversation. So tomorrow we're going to be doing a live stream on, I just talked about so much stuff. Now let me pull up what I wrote yesterday. 1 second. Okay. Tomorrow we're doing a Discord Q&A, okay, taken from the live stream's questions thread. So if you're in the Discord, there is a thread that says live stream questions. If you have a question that you want to ask for a live stream tomorrow that I'm going to answer live, put them there, okay? If you're not in the Discord, you're going to see a link to join the Discord in the description of these membership videos, okay? It's pinned in there. You just hit that link and you'll be able to join the Discord, all right? I know I didn't get the chance to get to chat Q&A today, but it's because I'm pretty fried after, saying all that from memory, okay? But I'm happy with how it all came out. I think I hit all the points that I want to hit. And so if you guys have any specific questions or anything that I said here are circumstantial questions, ask them in the Discord, and I will be on tomorrow to answer those Discord questions, okay? But I love you all so much. I hope this made sense, okay? It's all about you. It's not about obsessing over outcomes. It's about making a sustainable change within yourself to where entertaining those outcomes is something that you can normalize. You see yourself as somebody that has that experience and you're not waiting for it. You are just allowing it to unfold, okay? All right, beautiful. So if you're in limerence though, okay, you're gonna notice making a change in your self-concept. That's not gonna be an issue for you, okay? So It's all about bringing the focus back to yourself. There may be some discipline because at that point you have a very negative attachment, okay? But with enough discipline and persistence, you'll break that pretty quickly, okay? All right, beautiful. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Bye.